All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little recap reaction to Sunday Night Football as the Eagles take down the Dolphins. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And Underdog Fantasy is bringing you this video. This week in Underdog Fantasy, I'm going with Brandon Ayuk, higher than 5 receptions on Monday night. Jake Moody, higher than 1.5 field goals. Brock Purdy, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Daniil Hunter, higher than a half a sack. And they throw you a freebie this week. So I'll go with Kirk Cousins, higher than a half total yards. So there you go. Those are my picks with Underdog Fantasy. You can enter the same as me, or you can make your own picks. Sign up using the link in the description and use that promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to $100. All right, let's talk a little bit about the game of the week in the NFL, and that was the 5-1 Dolphins in Philly on national TV for Sunday Night Football against the 5-1 Eagles. Well, it went to the Eagles, and now the Eagles are 6-1. The Dolphins fall to 5-2. Eagles got the ball first, and they drove down the field on that first drive, and the key plays were Jalen Hurts, a couple pass plays to Dallas Goedert, and then Philly stalled in the red zone, and they settled for a Jake Elliott field goal, and that gave them a 3-0 lead. Now, that was Philly's first possession. Miami's first possession, they struggled, and Miami was without their center, Connor Williams, without offensive lineman Teron Armstead, and then on the first drive, Miami's offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn went down with an injury. So Miami was down 3 offensive linemen. Miami's first drive was derailed. Hassan Reddick had a tackle for a loss. Josh Sweat had a pressure, and the Dolphins were forced to punt. Now, Philly's second drive, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb got in on Hurts and forced a fumble. Christian Wilkins recovered the fumble at the Eagles' 23-yard line, and so that halted Philly's drive and gave Miami a chance to get on the scoreboard, and sure enough, they did. They would settle for a Jason Sanders 40-yard field goal to make it a 3-3 ball game, and that's where the first quarter ended. It was a very low-scoring first quarter, 3-3. Philly's third offensive possession at the end of the first quarter, they would move the ball down the field, and once again, they got to a 4th and 1, and they went with the quarterback sneak, the tush push, of which they convert 88% of the time, and that helped them keep the drive alive. Eventually, Hurts would find Dallas Goedert for a touchdown on a play where Miami blitzed both their linebackers, and so that made it 10-3 Philadelphia. Miami was forced to punt on their third possession as Philly's defense held. So Philly got it back on their fourth possession, and on 4th and 5, Hurts found A.J. Brown at the 1-yard line, and then Hurts went in with the quarterback sneak. Once again, the tush push, and it was 17-3 Dolphins, or 17-3 Eagles, I should say. Miami's fourth possession, Jalen Waddle went out of the game with a back injury. Josh Sweat had a sack of Tua. There was a great play where on 3rd and 18, Tua found Cedric Wilson for 30 yards to keep the drive alive. And eventually, Tua, with 44 seconds left in the half, would on a 3rd and 8 play, found Tyreek Hill for a touchdown to make it 17-10. So that is where the half ended, 17-10 Philadelphia. Miami in the first half, 10 points, only 113 yards, both their fewest points and their fewest yards in a half thus far this year. Philly dominated that first half. They had 169 total yards to 113 for Miami. They held the ball for 20 minutes to 10 minutes for Miami. Miami could not run the ball. Miami had -7 rushing yards in the first half. And Philly had way better offensive balance, 19 runs, 15 passes. The Dolphins had 16 passes and only 4 runs. Dallas Goedert was the star of the first half, 4 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. And the other key in this game, and it was a key in the first half, Miami had 6 penalties. The Eagles had none. Jalen Hurts very efficient in the first half, 12 of 15, 143 yards, a touchdown. He was sacked twice. He had 5 runs for 9 yards and a touchdown. And Philly's defense came to play. 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 3 hits on the quarterback in that first half. So Philly was up 17-10 to begin the third quarter. Dolphins would get the ball to begin the third quarter. Their 5th offensive possession, they were forced to punt. They did move the ball a little bit, but they still were forced to punt. Philly's sixth offensive possession also resulted in a punt when Hurts threw incomplete to A.J. Brown on 3rd and 5. Miami, by the way, not only were they down 3 offensive linemen, Xavier Howard didn't play in this game. Jalen Ramsey is yet to play, so they were also down 2 of their elite corners. Now, Miami, on their 6th offensive possession, Mostert had a 21-yard run. Then he ran for a first down. Jalen Waddle did return to the game. And on 4th and 3 from the 21, Mike McDaniel decided to go for it. And Tua dropped back to pass, and he found Cedric Wilson. And Bradbury grabbed the face mask of Cedric Wilson, but no call. The hometown refs, no call there. And so the Eagles, or I should say the Dolphins, turned the ball over to the Eagles on downs. And you felt like, wow, Eagles really got away with one. So Philly takes the ball on their 7th offensive possession deep in their own territory, and Hurts has a ball deflected to Jerome Baker, the linebacker, on the very first play. Baker ran it in for a pick 6, and it almost felt like it was a little justifiable payback because you had a 17-17 game, especially after the Dolphins didn't get the face mask penalty on the play before. Now it was tied at 17. And it was anybody's ball game. So Philly's 8th possession, Tua ran for 12 yards on a scramble. Then there was a pass play where both Javon Holland and David Long collided with each other and knocked each other out. Long had to go back to the locker room. Holland had to go to the tent and eventually would come back to the game. But Philly drove down the field. Hurts found A.J. Brown for a 14-yard touchdown to cap an 8-play, 75-yard drive in just under 4 minutes. And that made it 24-17 Eagles and broke that 17-17 tie. Miami's 7th offensive possession at the end of the 3rd quarter, beginning of the 4th. Hurts went to Waddle for 14. But Miami once again had a false start. That was their 9th penalty. And Tua went to Waddle on 3rd and 12 for another first down conversion. And then on 2nd and 13, later in the drive, Tua went to Waddle and basically went for 5 yards. And it got to 3rd and 8 at the 24-yard line. And on a pass to Mostert, one thing that happened in this game like 3 or 4 times, the Dolphins receivers ran the wrong routes. And so you had 2 Dolphin players right there, and you had a Mostert being guarded by the linebacker. You had the receiver being guarded by Darius Slay, big play Slay, and they ran to basically the same spot. And so Slay turned around, saw the ball in the air, and had plenty of time to get over and made the easy interception on the pass to Mostert. That was probably the biggest defensive play of the game. That could have been a touchdown. Instead, it was an interception. And so the Eagles would get the ball back up 24-17. And on their 9th offensive possession, they would start a lengthy drive. And on 4th and 2, 4th and 1.5, deep in their own territory, Sirianni had guts, and he went with the Hurts tush push, and they got a first down and extended the drive. Later in the same drive, they got another Hurts 4th and 1 tush push. It converted for a first down. And eventually Gainwell would spin into the end zone on a 2nd and goal play from the 3-yard line to make it 31-17 and cap a 13-play, 83-yard drive in 6 minutes and 35 seconds that put the game away. Miami, in their 8th offensive possession, couldn't get it going. At this point, Eagles were up multiple scores. Cox and Davis sacked Tua on one play. Then he was sacked on the next play by Josh Sweat. And then the Dolphins were forced to go for it on 4th and long, and they couldn't convert. And that was pretty much the ball game. 31-17, the final, and the Eagles get the win over the Dolphins. And a couple things really stood out in this game. One, Jalen Hurts really played a solid game. I mean, he was very strong in this game. 23 of 31, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was really, really strong. Miami had no running game to speak of. They ran 12 times, 3.8 a carry. Now, the Eagles have the last few weeks have not necessarily run it efficiently. They ran 34 times. They had good balance, 34 runs, 31 passes, but they only averaged 2.9 a carry. running the football. So it's not like they're running it tremendously efficiently, but A.J. Brown had a huge night. 10 catches, 137 yards and a touchdown. Goddard was really good as well. 5 catches, 77 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith was quiet, but it didn't seem to matter. The Eagles got 4 sacks and 6 hits on the quarterback. Slay, as I said, with the biggest play with the interception in the in the end zone late in the second half. And Miami was just too banged up, too banged up on the offensive line. And then also when you look at the team stats, I mean, the thing that really stands out in the game was, one, the Eagles had 355 total yards. That was one. But then it was the rushing yards, 99 to 45, and it really wasn't as close as that. And then it's the penalties. The Dolphins committed 10 penalties for 70 yards. The Eagles have still not been called for a penalty. They didn't get a penalty all night. 0 penalties for the Eagles, 10 on the Dolphins. So that was it right there. Eagles dominated the ball. They dominated the time of possession. They played a much cleaner game. They held the ball for nearly 37 minutes. Dolphins rolled in without their 2 top corners, down a couple offensive linemen, lost a third, couldn't run the ball, lost balance. Miami, did some really good things in this game. I thought Tyreek Hill is just an awesome receiver. I mean, he really is. Tyreek Hill had 11 catches in this game for 88 yards and a touchdown on 15 targets. But Waddle wasn't 100% healthy. The Dolphins couldn't really run it, and they didn't play a clean football game. So, that Philly's defensive front beat Miami's offensive front, and this game was probably closer than that score, 31-17 indicates. But the Dolphins take their second loss of the year, and the Eagles bounce back from a loss to the Jets with a nice win at home. So there you go. There's your instant reaction. Philly rolls to 6-1. The Niners take on Philly in Philly later on this year, and it's going to be a battle. It's going to be an absolute battle. When Philly gets to 4th down, and anything inside of 2, they'll go to the tush push, and they convert 88%. They got a strong offensive line. Dickerson and Kelsey, they run behind those 2 guys, the left guard and the center. Hurts has got tremendous leg power, and everybody gets really, really low, and it's just hard to stop. So the key is 1st and 2nd down, getting them into 3rd and long. If you can get the Eagles into 3rd and long, you got a shot. If you don't get the Eagles into 3rd and long, you don't really have much of a shot. Once again, 88% is what they convert on quarterback sneaks this year. And they do it as well as anybody in pro football. We'll see if some point they'll change the rules, because it does put, guys in harm's way, but it's working and it's effective, and they run it better than anybody else. And Hurts tonight did throw the pick 6, so it wasn't like he was perfect. He also lost a fumble. Yeah, so he had 2 turnovers. It wasn't like he played the perfect game. But the Dolphins were sloppy, and their O-line got beat, and they had no run game, and they had no offensive balance, and they wound up, despite looking flashy in this game, losing 31-17. All right, thanks to Underdog Fantasy, and once again, use that link in the description and use the promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to a $100. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.